Barcelona has a defense problem, but Barcelona does not have a defender problem. Those two are different, and let me explain you how. Welcome everyone, it's another episode of the Matchday Huddle brought to you by Hannibal at the Games, and we're going to do a SWOT analysis of FC Barcelona and their upcoming season. Now before we do a deep dive, let me bring you some recent history of the club. Now FC Barcelona has been one of the most iconic clubs in football, and they have contributed so much to this beautiful game. They have been one of the best teams available in 20th century. However, the post 2018-2019 season, they have fell off the grace of the footballing gods. Very sadly so. They have fallen off grace because of bad sporting decisions and poor financial conditions. However, post-COVID, in the last 3-4 years, we have seen a good recovery by Barcelona. They have significantly bounced back. First thing came in Xavi Hernandez as the new coach, and he brought in a lot of La Masia talent. He trusted their academy players, brought them into the first team. Players like Lamine Yamal, Pau Cubarsí, Fermin Lopez, Marc Bernal, Marc Casado, and we have seen very, very positive results of the same. Then he went on to bring ahead players like Robert Lewandowski, Ronald Araujo, Rafinha, and Jules Koundé. The result was that Barcelona under Xavi Hernandez won their La Liga in a long time, and the club had officially started its recovery run. Then the reins passed on to Hansi Flick, and once Hansi Flick came, he has changed the club significantly. He's brought in such positive results, and he has completely made a launch to recovery for this club. The 24-25 season under Hansi Flick was one of the best seasons we've seen in a long time for FC Barcelona. Short of winning the Champions League, Barcelona had done everything, and they were one of the best team, one of the most scariest team available in the entire Europe. Unfortunately, they lost the Champions League semi-finals to Inter Milan. However, if they had won the Champions League, they would have cemented their place in one of the conversations where you talk about the best seasons and the best teams, like the treble-winning Manchester City, the Mohamed Salah, Roberto Firmino and Sadio Mane's Liverpool, or the treble-winning Bayern, or even for that matter Pep Guardiola's Barcelona, Luis Enrique's Barcelona, or even say BBC Madrid. You would have seen Hansi Flick's Barcelona being one of the teams in this conversation. The 25-26 season of Barcelona was still positive. It was really good, but not as great as the 24-25. You could see the team was operating a bit differently. The team was much worse and much open defensively compared to the 24 season, because a lot of departures from the club and a lot of fatigue that you could see in the players. Now, in 24 season, the defense was still holding up and Barcelona was able to score goals. A lot of them. In 25 season, you saw them being tired, being fatigued, and you could see the result was that Barcelona was much more open and they were conceding so many chances. Now, this made everyone question, does Barcelona have a defender problem? A lot of the fans agreed that there is a huge defender problem for Barcelona, and a lot of people need to come in, a lot of people need to go out of the club to make defensive changes. However, I beg to differ from this opinion. I believe that individually Barcelona has some of the most competitive and best defenders available for their roles, and what Barcelona does have is a defense problem, which is not necessarily a defender problem. It's more related to the tactics and how the team works rather than individual defender and their abilities. Let's look at the individual defenders and their capabilities, their abilities, and you can realize why the defenders are not the problem here. Let's start with the left back position. Alejandro Balde has been playing as a left back for FC Barcelona for a long time. He was one of the starters of the club for the last 2 years. If you look at his profile, he's really great at defending. He's very fast, very pacey, and he's got a great ball carrying ability. He's got great shooting and crossing ability, and he can dribble really well. So he's a player who's contributed a lot defensively and in attack as well. Now, if you look at the team structure, on the left wing, whenever you have Rafinha, he likes to move inside the box. He's more of an inside forward than he is a winger. So Rafinha likes to make runs inside the box and wait for the ball to come to him. Rafinha does not take the ball. He does not dribble. his profile is more suited to being an inside forward. So he'll try to make those runs in the box and wait for the ball to come into him. So what does that do? That opens Barcelona's left flank, and somebody has to be there. Now Balde has to take that responsibility. He has to take the ball, carry it up the left flank, and stretch the entire left part of the pitch. So he has to hug the touch line. He has to be there on the left wing. He has to act as the left winger and carry the ball and make those crosses. What that does is now it makes Balde completely out of possession, and if the ball is lost, if the possession is gone back to the opponents, he is playing the left winger essentially. Now he has to make that recovery run. He has to run back to his box, which is a humongous task if you ask me, because every time the ball is lost, somebody counters, and people like to play a low block against Barcelona with one or two players up front. So every time the ball is lost, there is always a quick counter attack against Barcelona, which is why this positioning of Balde is really troublesome, which is why you see him making a lot of errors. You can see him being unable to catch up to the attackers. Why? Because he's already way out of possession. He's way out of his position, which is why he cannot catch up to the attackers. And that is why people have been blaming Balde for a lot of defensive problems, but I do not feel that it's completely his fault, because the role he plays, the way he plays, the structure that he is part of when he is playing on the pitch does not really help him the moment the ball is out of possession of FC Barcelona. So that is why you can see a lot of attacks coming from Barcelona's left part, the opponent's right flank. I'd rather say a lot of attacks come from there, the ball comes from there, the crosses come from there. You can look at a lot of matches, the Rayo Vallecano match or the Atletico Madrid matches, and you can see why I'm talking about this. Let's come to the centre back. Now in 24-25 you had the centre back pairing of Pau Cubarsí and Inigo Martinez, the famously called Breaking Bad duo. They used to perfectly trigger the offside trap, and the team's any attacker who tried to score a goal was caught offside. Now the biggest problem here is that Inigo Martinez's departure has been really hard on Barcelona. But to be fair, I think despite Inigo Martinez's departure being a hard-hitting fact for Barcelona, the bigger concern is that the teams, after one full season, have finally understood how to break this high line of Barcelona. Every time you see Barcelona conceding the same type of goal. Now, why does that happen? The same type of goal, the third man runs. The third man runs are always the reason. Majority of the goals conceded by Barcelona are that way, and that is not merely because there's no Inigo Martinez to execute the offside trap perfectly. I would rather say that the offside trap has been beaten. In a lot of matches, the players have really understood how to beat the offside trap, that is making one man purposely run offside, and then you carry the ball, somebody else carries the ball, and when they are ahead of the defenders, the guy who was offside suddenly becomes onside, and he gets the cross, he puts the ball into an open goal, because the defenders are trying to still make an offside trap, which is why they're already behind the attacker. They're already way behind the attacker, and all they can do is play catch up. Now, when the defender's job is to play catch up, you cannot expect them to possibly defend the attack. It is going to be 90% of the times attacker gets to shoot his ball before the defender can do anything about it. This is why I feel it's really unfair on the defenders, and this is why I feel that a lot of the criticisms that FC Barcelona's defender receive is not completely valid, because it's the tactic, it's the way the team plays. They are exposed to attacks and counter-attacks. They're very open to the same. Pau Cubarsí, look at him. Pau Cubarsí's performance for Spain, where Spain plays a rest defense, is one of the best. He's called as one of the most generational centre-backs, and he is as good as it gets. If you look at the defenders, he is one of the best defenders available in the world, if not the best, at the age of 19, if not the best. He's one of the best, certainly, for sure. Why he is that successful at Spain, but why is he that failing at Barcelona? He's not necessarily failing, but you can see Barcelona concede so many goals, while Spain, in the entire World Cup campaign, they conceded only one goal. The Argentinian team with Lionel Messi, Julian Alvarez could not score a goal. The French team with Mbappe, Dembele, Olise, Cherki, Doué, Barcola could not score a goal. Why is that? When Pau Cubarsí plays for Spain, he is that generational, but against Barcelona, he is just any other defender. Like I said, it all boils down to the tactics. Now, if you're trying to play an offside trap, when you're trying to play that high line, if the player has beaten it, there's nothing you can do about it. There is nothing absolutely a defender can do except play the catch-up game. And that is also nearly impossible because you're facing the opposite side, your body is twisted, it's on the opposite side, while the attacker is already facing and running towards the goal. You have to turn around and then accelerate and then try to catch up to him while the player is already running. So it's nearly impossible. No matter how fast you think you are, you're not going to catch up to him 9 out of 10 times. Same thing goes with Ronald Araujo. Ronald Araujo, I think, is more of a traditional centre back. He plays really well in a traditional defense. He was really good in Xavi Hernandez's Barcelona, but he's been awful at Hansi Flick's Barcelona, and people have completely criticized him for that. He's been criticized for making a lot of mistakes, but I feel some of the mistakes definitely his fault, but a lot of mistakes cannot be attributed to him because he's not the player who is part of the new high line tactics, who is part of the offside traps. He's one of the traditional defenders. If you play him in a traditional defense, a rest defense, he's going to give you really great numbers. He's good at blocking attacks, he's good at tackles. But when you have to make him tackle from behind, when you have to make him play in a high line, that is when he's going to make mistakes because he does not have the time to think. He's a player who relies completely on his instincts, and when he's behind the defender, he's definitely going to make, when he's behind the attacker, he's going to make those mistakes. The same thing goes for the right back of FC Barcelona, that is Jules Koundé. In 24 season, he was regarded as one of the best right backs, if not the best right back in the world. He was only competing with Hakimi for the position of best right back. And in 25 season, you can see Koundé is already gassed out. People are complaining that he's not to his levels, and people also want him to be sold off to some other team. Now, that is the biggest problem. If you know what Koundé is capable of, if you've seen his abilities, what happened in the 25 season? I believe in 25 season, he's more fatigued, and like I said, the players have figured out how to beat offside trap. And like Balde, who stretches the left side pitch, Koundé also likes to move ahead. He plays in a structure where he has to move ahead and give a lot of support to Lamine Yamal. Lamine Yamal on the right flank, despite him not being an inside forward, he really struggles against defenders. I mean, he does not struggle against defenders, obviously. He dribbles past them, but in this season, team have figured out, and they have already put 3 men against Lamine Yamal, which is why in order to support him, Koundé has to make those overlapping runs and underlapping runs so that Lamine Yamal can do his thing best. He can dribble past 1-2 players, but for that, Koundé has to draw out the third player at least towards himself, which is why he's always in the final third of the opposition. He's always inside the box, either making those underlapping runs or making those overlapping runs, stretching out the line, stretching out the defenders, and bringing 1 or 2 defenders with himself, drawing them out so Yamal can do his thing. And which is why, the same way, the moment Barcelona loses their ball, Koundé is already at a disadvantaged position. He's already so high up the pitch. He can just try running back, which obviously is not going to happen because the attacker's way ahead of him and he's way out of his position as a right back. He's playing at a right wing stage. He's complementing Yamal at that right wing, which is why it's almost impossible for the Barcelona defense to catch up to these attackers, because the problem with that high line is that they are already behind their attackers. You've seen new additions to Barca's defense like Gerard Martin actually. I mean, he's called as Gerard Maldini because how good he's become. Initially brought as a left back who turned into a centre back and pairs up really nicely with Pau Cubarsí. But like I said, this defense problem is a complete disaster for the defenders because they have to take heat from the fans and from rivals, while I don't think majority is their fault. It is just the way the structure Barcelona plays, and how the opponents have figured out how to play against this offside trap. Now, Hansi Flick's offside trap really requires a lot of commitment, not just from defense, but from the attack and the midfield. It's like Pep Guardiola's 6-second rules. The moment you lose possession, you need to trigger your press and you need to win back the ball. What the problem here is that the press has not been as effective as it was in the 24 season. The last season's Barcelona's pressing was really uncoordinated and not at the levels required, which is why the ball really gets played to the attacker and those third man runs have begun, and all Barcelona defenders can do is catch up to them. The reason for this is that players have been fatigued. That this is one of the theories that has come up, is that the players are fatigued because Hansi Flick's tactics and training is really intense. You saw in the 24-25 season that he demands physicality, he demands everything from his players, which is why every match players have to give their all, they have to do a lot of running, and that really gassed them out completely. The 25 season, you can see the players already being fatigued. They were already tired. The bodies had shown signs that they cannot continue at this high level, which is why I believe that Hansi Flick, although he should continue with the high line tactics, because that's really what his brand is, that is really something he knows how to play best. The way Barcelona presses needs to be changed, and the way Barcelona plays for 90 minutes has to be changed. You cannot continue the high line for 90 minutes now coming this season, because like I said, teams have finally figured out playing high line for 90 minutes is going to be a bit suicidal, because Barcelona cannot compete against those third man runs when they are already out of position, especially now that teams have more and more data and more matches. They can see and look exactly what their opponents did to expose Barcelona's defense problem. You need to have a more pragmatic approach and also have rest defense, because these defenders, like I said, band for band, they're one of the best defenders available in the market. If you have Bastoni, we have Pau Cubarsí. For Virgil van Dijk, we have Pau Cubarsí. Barcelona fans can say, you have Hakimi, we have Koundé. If you have, say, Frimpong, if you have Trent, we have Balde. They are band for band one of the most competitive defenders and one of the most talented defenders. Like short of a Maldini, I think all the defenders available in the market for Barcelona are as good as the current defenders that are available for Barcelona. This is the sole reason why I believe that bringing in new defenders is not going to change the problem. It's not going to bring any solutions. Bringing in new people will expose them to this new reality that no matter who you bring in, as long as the tactics remain the same, Barcelona is exposed and may face and concede goals. Like I said, the tactic that needs to change is Barcelona needs to play more rest defense and play high line only at the moments they choose to play. Like the offside trap should be triggered at selective moments. The high line should be used at selective moments, and you need a great captain, somebody not a captain per se, but somebody, a leader at the defense line, because your center backs are relatively very young. I mean, they're actually physically very young. Your full backs are already up ahead on the pitch, so somebody needs to hold the defense line. Somebody has to take that leadership quality, something that Inigo Martinez provides, because he knew when to trigger an offside trap, when to press high line. So you need somebody to take leadership of that. I do believe Pau Cubarsí is very intelligent player and he can take that leadership role. Even at the age of 19, he is too good and he can be part of that leadership. But like I said, he needs to be given freedom, that when you require, you need to play the rest defense, you need to play traditionally, and when required, you need to play that high line and your offside traps, because you cannot continue that for 90 minutes. The offside trap and the high line of Hansi Flick relies on triggering the press. It relies on the moment you lose the possession of the ball, your players need to press and continuously press the opponents until they somehow give up the possession back to Barcelona. Now, like I said, the press has been uncoordinated. Why? One of the theories that I have is, again, the players are too fatigued. The 24 season, they were able to press properly. However, after 1 year of high intensity playing, finally their bodies seem like they cannot continue this press for a long time. You cannot play this intensely for 90 minutes and show up with the same results year after year. I mean, one season it worked, it was brilliant, but I don't think it worked in the second season, and I definitely don't think it can continue to work in the third season, because there's so many games, so many matches that the players have to continuously play. They do not have enough rest. They cannot recover that quickly, which is why they cannot be this intense for the entirety of 90 minutes. Now, that is the reason why I believe that a more traditional role should be played by Barcelona. Considering the Spanish squad was essentially a lot of Barcelona players, I think they can use some of those tactics of short passing and building up of the play. And although Spain also used a trigger of quick defense and quick press to win the ball back, the difference in this Spanish squad was that even though the attackers and the midfields triggered press, your defenders were still behind enough that if the ball was lost and if the counter attack was made, the defenders were in a position that they can make those tackles, they can make those blocks, they can stop the passing lanes. So your defenders were relatively behind and in a position that they can stop the attackers from scoring. That is the big difference, because when you trigger your press, you need your midfielders and your attackers to do that. You may use your defenders, but the defender should know that there has to be somebody out there back. You cannot be high up near the half line and trigger that press, and the moment it fails, you are exposed to a counter attack, which you did, and Barcelona has been conceding a lot of goals like that. So something that has to be changed is the pressing mechanism and the team structure overall. The intensity needs to reduce, because like I said, the players cannot play this intensely for 90 minutes continuously, and we can see the results of that. Now, I do understand that the teams like to play a low block against FC Barcelona, which is why the fullbacks, the left back and your right back, they have to push higher up. They are along their wingers in the defense box of the opponents. But now, when you do that, you need to ensure that your CDM, your defensive midfielder, is as back and they're ready to support your center backs, because now when the opponent makes the runs, they have at least 3 players making the runs, because if you have 2 center backs behind, they send in all the 3 forwards, which causes a problem because there is an extra attacker that the defender has to account for, which makes them really tough for the players to chase those attackers. You're short of one defender, which is why I believe that your defensive midfielders rather, have to fall back and support the defenders, because your fullbacks are already stretching the flanks, they're stretching the wing side, trying to break that low block. Now, that is something that Barcelona can do, that can make a difference. Somebody like a Pedri or a Frankie need to be behind along the center backs to support the game. One player, I think, in the midfield who can change the game completely is Gavi. Now, Gavi has the similar profile that Joao Neves has, and which is why I believe he is somebody who can press and press relentlessly for a long time. He has that knack of making those tackles, triggering presses, and winning the ball back. He's somewhat of a ball winner, and he is literally like a pit bull. He will completely hound you until you make a mistake or you give him the possession of the ball. Inclusion of Gavi in this Barcelona squad will be really crucial, because he's somebody who can give you more intensity and more output in the 90 minutes than any other player. Now, Frankie de Jong loves to carry the ball, and he is a good ball winner, but he is not that great of a presser relatively comparing with Gavi. He's a good presser on his own, but comparing those qualities with somebody like a Gavi is where Frankie de Jong falls short of. Now, if you're playing one Pedri or one Frankie, I think we need to pair in another Gavi. Something that PSG does. When they have a Vitinha playing, they also have a Joao Neves playing, which is why I believe PSG has a great midfield, and they are able to do all the tactics that Barcelona tries to do, and they've just done it better the last season. And that is what my analysis says, guys. This is the defense problem that Barcelona has. I can bring out another video regarding the attack and the midfield of Barcelona, but so far these 24 minutes I only had to speak on the defense problem. Thank you so much, folks. I will see you on the next one.